This is the Chronicle Extra. This is where the chat continues. Welcome to the official film podcast of the People's Movies. As I said, this is where the chat continues. I'm Paul, and we have Clotilda with me today. And thank you very much for everyone that's just listened to the Oscar and BAFTA episode, which is episode 41. Thank you very much. If you haven't listened to that, it's available on the usual places. For this episode, we're going to talk about Bridget Jones, the Mad About the Boy. I'd like to introduce the film, just a basic premise of the film.
Yes, so this is the fourth movie of the Bridget Jones series, and this time we follow the protagonist, Bridget Jones. This time she's sort of approaching a new chapter in her life. She's recently widowed and a single mother now. So the film picks up really after the death of Mark Darcy, which is, I think, very sad for all of us who have watched it for a couple for so long. But Bridget now sort of has to find a new way to live. And at first she's very much against like finding love again. And it's really hard for her to obviously rebuild a new life. We see all her friends sort of like coming together to help her. And even her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Cleaver, he also like comes around and helps. But they sort of help her create a new normal for herself. So she goes back to work and even sort of tries to find love again. At first, we see her like on dating apps where she meets Roadster, played by Leo Woodall, and they start this romance. He's a lot younger than her, but they start seeing each other and it all seems well and good. But at the same time, there's also another man. I want to say kind of in the background at the beginning, and he's her son's science teacher. So obviously it's a sort of like it's once again a romance and sort of like a love triangle to see who will win Bridget's heart once again. But I think what's really good about it is that it does feel quite different and new. Obviously, like it's still very much the same genre as the other Bridget Jones films. And it's obviously a fourth installment, so it's kind of has to hold back on the others in some ways. But I think they introduced a lot of new concepts and it's very refreshing in a way because I think for the past three films, it's always been about like Mark Darcy or Daniel Clear. I mean, not the third one, obviously, because Hugh Grant is not in it. But I think by the time we saw the third sequel, it felt like they were always following the same structure.
Yeah.
And we always knew like she was going to end up with Mark. I think that's something that from the very first film is quite obvious. And I think with this one, it's more like, I don't think it's more fun, but there is that element of novelty. Like you have two brand new characters. Obviously, she's at a completely different stage of her life that, we wouldn't expect, she wouldn't expect even as, the character. And even though it's very, very sad to like not see Mark Darcy, I think it was also necessary to do a fourth film. Like you couldn't have had it with him, if that makes sense. And it's what makes it quite interesting because it's just nice to see something different, I think. But at the same time, it does keep the original quite a lot. Like she's still the same character, just with different circumstances. And that's also what's nice about seeing all her friends and seeing Daniel again. There's so much to love, I think, if you like the first few films, because it does feel like everything's come together. Like all her friends from the first film or her work friends that we've seen in the sequels, they all sort of like come together really. I think that's quite beautiful to see. Also because like this sequel has been, I want to say, kind of a long time coming. I think the third film was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, 9 years
So
ago. Yeah.
9 years ago, yeah. So it's quite fun to see like everyone really going back to these roles. I think there's an element of like familiarity to it. Like no matter what they've done in this 9 years, everybody seems to be really happy to pick it up again. Um, and obviously that's really nice to see for the audience because we've really seen this character a lot. So I did really like it. I do think it's an excellent sequel because it's at the same time old and new, right? It brings these new elements, even the idea of the dating apps. Like that's not something we've seen in Bridget Jones before because, like I said, the third film was like 9 years ago. So it does have an element of also like modern times in it of like, okay, we're doing it now in 2025 now, and that is reflected within the movie. But it's also this element of familiarity that I think every sequel should. I think they strike that balance quite well. And I also think it's very emotional, more emotional than I thought it would be. I mean, I think the sort of Bridget Jones films can be quite emotional, but are very much romantic comedy. There's a lot of humor to them, and there is a lot of humor to this one. I mean, I saw it at a press screening, and it was packed. It was like a big theater, but everybody like was laughing out loud. That's such a good feeling, I think, when you watch a film like this one. But at the same time, there were moments where like people were crying. I was crying. It does have I think, a level of like emotional that maybe the other films don't have, in the sense that it's very, very, it's quite deep. Like it's not just about like love, and not that the other films were, but it does touch on other topics that I think like these themes were not as explored maybe in the first three movies, especially given, the plot. It does touch a lot on grief, which is quite profound. I think the way they bring it in is not too like, I don't think it comes off as like preachy, and doesn't come off as like too sad. It's still funny, but it has some moments where like it really hits you, I think. And I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to sort of like Bridget's struggle to approach life without Mark, and also how to deal with that for her kids. I think those are all like very profound moments that really touch you during the film. And I think they dealt with it quite well, because it's really hard to like not make it too sad or not make it all funny given the subject matter. And the balance between the two is really, really good, I think. But what did you think?
Well, what I will say is I'm not the targeted audience, and I don't want to say this is not a sexist comment or anything. It's the ultimate chick flick. It is. It's one for the girls. It's one for the ladies. And that is probably why it's so popular. I mean, what I liked about it, each of the four films is different age groups, and I think with the big difference, as you said, we said 2016, I think the last one came out. I think it was done deliberately because you want to see on set stages of your life where we all go through. Obviously, the first one, Bridget Jones' Diary, which was made 24 years ago. Renée
Uh,
Zellweger was 32, 31 going on to 32. I believe she's now 55. The first one's all about relationships, where a lawyer, Mark Darcy, and that. Obviously, the big, is it Pride and Prejudice? Especially the
yeah,
BBC one, the one that Colin Firth in it. Colin Firth was actually in. So that, I believe at the beginning, that was a bit of a parody to get him in, and that's not necessarily what do you call the Twilight one, it became the 50 Shades. No, in that sort of sense, a wee bit fan fiction, which in a way this sort of is as well, the way it sort of, I think, landed out. So obviously, say that's all about her, Colin Firth, and then obviously our former lover playboy Daniel Cleaver, which is Hugh Grant, and then it was 2004, I think, The Edge of Reason, and I believe
hmm,
this is the I've only seen the first one and obviously the last one. I'm like you, I watched it in a press screening. It was quite a quiet press screening, so I think we were all about
really,
that. Yes, there was the odd laugh. There's an odd laugh that uh, it was made. It wasn't me. It was laughing, but yeah, there was an odd laugh. And I don't know what it is. I don't know. Obviously in London area, there'll be mix of
yeah,
the big newspapers, the big media. Where I'm in Glasgow, we have a mixture. Two or three will come from the sort of Scottish editions of the mainstream newspapers, the BBC, STVs, we call it ITV, that type of thing. There as well. And then it's the rest of us, the small fries is one of them called us. So yeah, so obviously the second one, Edge of Reason. Have you seen all the movies all together? Yeah.
I have. Yes, I actually specifically did a rewatch before watching the last one.
Is it by the fans of the franchise? Is Bridget Jones' Edge of Reason considered the weakest of obviously for
Oh, it's hard. I think so, but I think even Bridget Jones' Baby is like, it's good. Like, it's not a
yeah
bad film. I think it's quite fun, but
yeah
I think you can tell, because obviously they're based on books. But if I'm correct, Bridget Jones' Baby is the only one. Because there's only three books. There's not four books. It's the
yeah
only one that's not based on a book. Because Not About the Boy is based on the last book of the Bridget series.
yeah
So I think that's quite evident. And I think for me personally, this latest one, Mad About the Boy, is probably the best sequel out of the three sequels because it does bring so many new elements. It feels like you're watching something fresh.
No, what I'm liking is obviously you've seen them all. I haven't, so we're seeing like an outsider, as you like to say, and
Hmm.
an insider. A little fact:
Yeah.
were you living in the UK when the Beast from the East?
No,
No. Well,
I
I
remember though
yeah
when what was it, Bridget Jones' Baby, when it came out, I was like doing a study abroad in high school
yeah
in the UK, and I think I had like recently left or something, but I remember everybody was quite obsessed with it. Like it was such a big cultural phenomenon, I think.
yeah.
Also because it had been like more than 10 years since the second one. But I remember like, I mean, I wasn't like shocked, but I was a bit confused because I don't think it's the same. It has the same relevance in Italy,
Yeah.
so that's quite fun, I think.
Basically, when the Beast from the East happened, I think it was 2019 or something like that. As you know, I work for a very well-known airline at Glasgow Airport. It's in my hometown of Paisley. It's not actually in Glasgow. So I like this morning. We're recording this on the day of the release of the Bridget Jones and the 13th. I walk in. It takes me 30 minutes. So when the base race, because it was the snow, it took me 2 hours to walk on because the snow was that thick. But see, when I was coming back, it took me nearly 3 hours. The bit where Bridget Jones gets absolutely soaked. No, she's out for the day and she gets absolutely drenched with the motor splashing all the water. That happened to me coming back not once but 3 times. Happened to me, and somebody shouted out at one of the windows of the house. He's like, "Oh look, there's a male version of Bridget Jones," you know. And I went, uh,
Yeah,
"Let's just say I can't say back exactly what I said. You know, we might get cut off air as well. You know." And
yeah.
so that was quite funny. So that's how I always remember Bridget Jones. So obviously Bridget Jones' Edge of Reason. It was all about the sort of fears of stepping into a commitment, if I remember it, if it is, and obviously I believe Mark Darcy was he was very old fashioned, very in his traditional in his sort of way of things, you know. And so obviously it was a bit bumpy and that, and a lot of things happened, you know, in it. Bridget Jones' Baby, always it's all about motherhood. Plus, she was over 40 at the time. I think she was about 43, which is not unusual. A lot of ladies are having their kids late and obviously doing their career and that. And then obviously we get mad about the boy. Do you, obviously in the trailer, you've already mentioned about Colin Firth's character. Did you
Hmm.
think, obviously, it mentioned it in the trailer, which was a bit of a spoiler. It's a bit, there's
Yeah,
a lot, yeah, I think it's a bit like, I don't know, have you seen Companion yet?
I have not.
Have you seen the trailer?
Um, I think so, yeah.
Well, apparently there's a big spoiler in it. I'm not going to say it, I
Okay.
know, because I've listened to a lot of reviews.
Yeah.
There's not a spoiler in it, but I've listened to these reviews. I think they do enough in the film to rescue it. I'm going to be watching it the weekend. So there's a wee bit of that, and it sort of made it a little bit sad. So it was obviously like a bit of teaser for that. The film did, I actually found our friends, they were a wee bit shallow, you know, because obviously, but I can see the joke they were playing, and you can back me up here if it's correct. Through the thumbs, they're always giving her advice, but it's always the wrong advice, if you know what I mean. I think that was I think that was part of the humour as well. But the most thing was they were very loyal to her, and they were always with her every part of the sort of journey. And obviously, I think this film was all about the sort of dating of the young, the date, being back in the dating game, and obviously dating an older woman dating a younger man. You know, with
Hmm.
Rockstar in it. Rockstar played by Lee Woodall, who
Yeah.
is I forget the name of the new Apple Plus TV series. It was just released a couple of weeks ago. He's the lead actor.
Uh,
He plays the mathematician, the great brain. But I believe he's in White Lotus, and he's also the lead male in One Day. You know, the Netflix version of the Anne Hathaway film, which she did many,
oh,
yeah, which was set in Edinburgh. Which I believe, if I remember rightly, one part of One Day is set in Edinburgh as well, because I think it's a writer for Edinburgh. as I said, I liked about each of the films. It was different ages, and it showed different challenges that we all go through in my life. All I say is, no one is sound. It makes me sound old. I am now this year about to join the same decade of ages that Bridget Jones is in the now. Renée Zellweger. But obviously, I'll not have the same challenges. Maybe the same challenges of Daniel Cleaver, Hugh Grant. What I liked about that, he's became more of a go-to friend for her,
Yeah.
and he's like the uncle to her kids. And what I liked about him, I think he's one of the best things about it. Even if he's not in it a lot, and I don't mean that as in a cameo, but anytime he's in it, he's typical Hugh Grant humour. It's that sort of dry humour. And I know I said I wouldn't swear, but I just love how he's showing all the kids how to make a dirty bitch. If you're a Bridget Jones fan, you know what I'm talking about, and I think you know what I'm talking about, Clotilda. It's a drink. That's a
Yeah.
dirty bitch. I know I said I wouldn't swear. I like the things, that sort of thing, and you know what? The first film is very cheesy, but it was very likable, and the targeted audience, the ladies, the girls at the time, they were connecting with her, and they grew with it. I think they grew each film because the fan base of the film actually could relate to those sort of changes in their life and the sort of challenges that we go through as well, that type of thing. And I think it plays in a lot of, it's a bit cynical, the film a wee bit, because it really plays a lot on the nostalgia, which can also be a good thing. It could also be a bad thing, because I think certain films, as if anyone remembers, were Ghostbusters. Anytime we've talked about Ghostbusters, the last one, we did it obviously in the worst films. The last Ghostbuster film overdoes it in the nostalgia. This sort of borderline. But the thing is, did I care about the film? Not really, because as I said, I'm not really the targeted audience. And I really don't want to be very negative, because as I said, I'm not the targeted audience, and a lot of people will love this, and I'm seeing for the reviews, including your own one, Clotilda. Folks, if you're listening, Clotilda has actually done the main review on the website, The People's Movies. It's on the website now. Go and read it. It is a positive, very positive read, as you're going to be hearing on here. Yeah, if you enjoyed the other movies, you're really going to still enjoy this. I couldn't comment if it's any better, because I haven't seen the second and third movie, but you said it's the best of the sequels. It felt really bad, because obviously I think I watched it 2 days before you. I watched it a week ago. I think you were more
Hmm.
midweek. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you, the people coming to ask me, is it any good, any good? The embargoes, it was driving me nuts.
Yeah.
It was driving
They
me nuts.
lifted on Monday, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did. Basically lifted the day that yeah, and so I've just felt right. People go, yeah, I can tell you how bad or good it is. So a
Yeah,
lot,
finally.
yeah, a lot with a lot of women at work, and they were all asking me, and I says, I can't really tell you, but I know I can.
Yeah, me too.
I know, and so that was, I was like, thank God for that. I did watch another film. All I'll say is they're reviewing, they're bringing it up as a horror Valentine's movie, Heart Eyes. Probably the worst film I've ever seen in a long time. Zero
Nobody
stars.
liked that.
Everyone's loving it, but you know, Clotilda, I love my horrors.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, when somebody who loves horrors is
You
saying
didn't
this
like
is a
it.
terrible movie, it was
I
awful.
heard some negative reviews as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct there. As I said, Hugh Grant, he's very charming in this. The old geezer, he's there for Bridget, and he's still his naughty self, no, down his little, is that you now coming over to me to embrace me and everything, any type of things, you know. As I said, but he was very, very impactful in this, and he's still showing his charm. He was the older guy with the younger lady who was what was she, a poet stroke artist type thing. Lee Woodall, as I said, young Mike, I think he's really just there for the older ladies with a bit of eye candy. Because there's one scene in this, I think it's in the trailer, I don't think I'm spoiling anything. He rescues someone and he jumps in a pool.
Oh yeah, it's on the trailer. Yeah,
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 yeah, and the song "Mad About the Boy" forgive me, I forget the name of the lady that sang it, starts playing, and it's one for the shirt. But that is a homage to, if you've seen the Pride and Prejudice '95 BBC series with Colin Firth does the exact same
Mhm.
thing. So I think what this is really doing is this is replicating everything, and I think that where I get quite just frustrated because yeah, when it's a franchise, you want to keep little bits of the franchise to say, right, I know it's that like Scream, there's obviously the Ghostface killer. There's little things, you know. And other franchises have got their thing, Star Wars, but they always had a little bit extra in, be it good or bad, to try and make it a little bit refreshing as well. I think that is one of the problems I see for an outsider, that with it's people. I want to see something slightly different, you know. And as you know, with all the films, even though it says it's mad about the boy, you've sort of mentioned it yourself, Clotilda. Is there's always two. That's two guys, and obviously it's G12 Ejiofor who plays the our son's. Is it? It was his science teacher or the maths teacher? I can't remember.
I think it's science.
Science, and it was blatantly obvious from the start. He was in there as well. Who does he go for? Who does obviously Bridget go for? We'll leave that to yourself. I'm not going to go further on. I've got a few other things to say. If you want to sort of give your final thoughts and what sort of rate you're going, and I'll give my final thoughts right after it.
I'm just really happy with it. I think it's like what's beautiful as a fan of the franchise is that it stays so true to what Bridget Jones is and like why people related to it in the first place when it first came out, but bringing it into like 2025, which I think was probably quite hard to do, especially because it's been so long
Yeah,
between that season. And also getting everyone back together, that I think that must have been a huge challenge. I think it's also quite fun to see, which is always true for the Bridget Jones film, but to see London, like that's always, I think, very fun if you're, if you live in London or if you know London is, it's just, I don't think we see the city that often. I think we do see a lot of like landmarks and that, but I think for Bridget Jones, you just see like people living in London like normal, and it's quite fun to sort of like pick or like be able to say where they were or imagine like, oh, that's exactly, I know exactly where they filmed, but without it being necessarily like the London Eye.
yeah,
And that's something we love about Bridget Jones as well. But yeah, overall, like I said, I really liked it. I think it's probably, well, it doesn't compare to the first one. I think the first films are always the best ones usually.
yeah,
But other than that, it's for me the best sequel. So I did give it 4 stars.
yeah. 4 stars. Myself, obviously, I think obviously this film is obviously I think it's targeting mums, parents, single parents, you know, single mums,
Mhm.
that type of way. And as I said, if you loved all the other films, you're going to love this. Just go with your friends, get your popcorn or whatever your favourite snacks is. Just go and have a laugh. And I know the ladies are going to love it, you know. You'll love it. Do you know also as a little fact that Bridget Jones Mad About the Boy is actually in the UK is broke the biggest pre-box office sales. The last,
Really?
yeah, it's the last film to do that was Barbie. So it's
I'm so
actually
happy
done.
to hear that. That makes
Yeah,
me very happy.
yeah, I believe I got that for the Guardian. And
Yeah.
yeah, and or the Guardian Independent. I can't remember. I looked at one of the websites, and so that shows you how much people are wanting to see this. You know, I think it's a bit of a fan service, as I said. Just said there, it's for that. It's sort of showing you how making the best of life. And does Bridget Jones evolve? Yeah, mate, I think she does. And it's just sort of what you're looking for. It's closer than you actually think. And it was obviously, does she pick up the diary? Yes, she does. When she picked up the diary in this, I'm a big David Bowie fan, and Modern Love is in that. That's when right at the
Yeah.
beginning. I love that song. It's probably one of his best 80s songs. It's very frothy. It's very paint by numbers. Do you know what? See, when you what it was very cringy for me was Renée Zellweger had that smile, smirky smile, which she
Yeah.
constantly done through it, and it made me feel, is she only there just for the paycheck, or she
100%.
actually, actually
I
there
think
for
it's
the,
Botox. It feels
yeah,
like she can only do that smile, and that's so sad.
yeah. And I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it's obvious she said a bit of work in her face. We've seen it in well before Bridget Jones. Because see, when you see right at the end, folks, don't go leaving as the credits going, because there's a lot of bit of memorabilia part there, and you get to see the different faces of her from the first film, the middle films, and that, and you go, wow, is that the same person? Type of thing.
I know.
I think at times it does lack a bit of development as an extra things. The comedy starts to get a little bit juvenile. Sort of comedy you would expect back in the first film. It doesn't really sort of mature. And I think sometimes some of the jokes she comes across sometimes as like a dad hitting a really bad dad joke. And I don't care what part of the world anyone's from. Dads in the world always have dad jokes. Whatever language, they probably sound they're always awful jokes. You know what I'm saying? Mad about the boy. It started to become a little bit of gimmick in this. However, if you love the films, you're going to love the previous film. You're going to love this. And I've given Bridget Jones 2 stars. So you have it, folks. Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, is now in UK and Irish cinemas, and some of the cinemas all around the world. But I do believe in the US it's going direct to streaming there. But you need to look at your local listings to find out what streaming service it's going to be. There you go. That's Mad About the Boy. There you have it, folks. That's a lot. That is your Chronicle Take 2. Obviously, this will be available in the usual places. Thank you very much for joining us. Clotilda, thank you very much for joining us as well. As I said, the film is now out in UK and Irish cinemas. For other places, please look for your local listings. As I said, sometime that might actually be on streaming services. Clotilda, would you like to tell us where the people can find you on social media and where they can maybe read some of your reviews?
So I'm on Instagram at the Perks of Being Chloe. I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Films with Chloe. I use Twitter, not so much, but I try.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we all do.
my reviews are on a bunch of websites, including the People's Movies, of course.
Yeah.
Loud and Clear Reviews and Movie Maker.
That's great. Obviously, as I said, folks, this is take 2. This is where we sometimes continue to chat. But obviously, look on all our social media and the People's Movies to know when the next episode of the Chronicle, the main episode, and other episodes of Take 2 will be out. Obviously, you might find these on some of the popular sites for your download your favourite podcasts, like Podbean, which is your main actual place to find the podcast. And obviously, you've got YouTube as well. You've got Spotify. You've got Castbox, to name a few. Podchaser's another one as well. We are a small website. Any support you can give us, we don't get any finance. So if you want to show your support for the website, for the podcast, the Chronicle, you can head over to Buy Me a Coffee, and that's where you can show your appreciation. But also, what you can do is share this podcast, share any other podcasts that we do, any of the old ones, any of the new ones, on social media with your friends and family. As in the social media where we're at, we're on Blue Sky. We're also on Facebook and X, Twitter, at The People's Movie. We're also on Instagram as well, at The People's Movies, and over at YouTube at The People's Movies 1. You can also sign up for our email newsletter, where you'll find all this information I've just mentioned there as well. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us. As I said, Clotilda, thank you very much for joining us as well. Until the next time, enjoy the movies.